We have reached the end of the rocky road to Creed 3. This is the final video in the series until the movie comes out. I will be reviewing the film when it comes out. I will give you spoiler and non spoiler reviews when that happens, Creed 3. But let's talk about its predecessor, Creed 2, from 2018, the sequel to the original Creed, a movie that I have very, very positive feelings about, but I did not have them when I heard the premise. When I had heard that the idea for Creed 2 was going to be that the son of Apollo Creed, Donnie, would fight the son of Ivan Drago, Victor, I hated the idea. I hated it. I thought it was too derivative. I thought it felt too forced. It made the boxing and even the universe that Stallone had built with the previous movies not as big, and it felt like such a lame, uncreative way to create a new villain, right? That's how I felt initially. And then when I saw the movie, my God, did my opinion change. This movie does so many things right. First of all, the screenplay. This was written by Joel Taylor and Sylvester Stallone, so he had his fingerprints in this. Directed by Stephen Caple Jr. But honestly, you'd think it'd be Ryan Coogler because he does a lot of the same things in this movie that Coogler did in that one. But I love this movie because the script and the story were absolutely phenomenal. And even though, unlike the previous Creed, Creed 1, where it really spent time focusing on both Rocky and Donnie's story, this movie Rocky is much more of a supporting player. He's still important and he has a character arc that began with Rocky Balboa conclude at the end of this movie, but this movie does shift the focus a lot more on Donnie and his struggles dealing with Ivan Drago's son. What I think they did really well in this movie, I already mentioned the story and the script and everything, and that's all the most important thing. The fight scenes are great, of course. What they did well that I was not expecting is this movie is so well written and such a worthy sequel to the original Creed that for a long time I said it was better than the first one. And honestly, it depends on my mood. Sometimes I think that Creed 1 is better, sometimes I think this one is better. But for a long time, this one really moved me. Even though Creed 1 really tugged on my emotions, this one was so amazing because they made decisions that I was not expecting. One of the big storylines in this film is the aftermath of Rocky 4. Not just with Apollo dying and Rocky's guilt about it, that's obviously going to factor in, but really what happened to the Drago family after Rocky 4. And this movie goes right into it. We find out that they did have children, Ivan and his wife, who we see played by Bridget Nielsen once again, Stallone's ex wife, coming back to be the real villain of the story. And after Ivan Drago lost to Rocky and Rocky 4, his life took a complete left turn and went downhill fast. He lost his money, his country didn't respect him anymore, and he lost his wife. One of the things they really focus on in this film is how other countries see success and view success, specifically people that are in different cultures. And this movie really, really hammered home how Bridget Nielsen's character, I think her name is Ludmilla, which is Ivan Drago's wife, how much of a shallow human being she was. She had no loyalty to her son or her husband and only cared about money. And it's what drove Ivan because Ivan wanted to impress her and get her back and get his life back. But it wasn't in the cards. It was not in the cards because she's just not a good person. But it was so powerful. And I loved how when Donnie fought Victor in the middle of the movie, I mean, one thing I did not like is I didn't like Donnie beating an older Wheeler to get the title. I thought that should have been done in its own movie, but that's neither here nor there. When he fights Victor in the middle of the movie and Donnie wins by disqualification, but Victor puts him in the hospital with like a cracked rib and kidney failure, or not kidney failure, it was like a injured kid, like a bruised kidney. Um, like I love that choice. Because they could have made it to where Victor beat him and then Donnie wins the rematch, which is sort of what they did. But instead, they went with disqualification, which was foreshadowed by Rocky saying that Victor Drago is strong, but just raw power. He's not like a boxer. And I thought that was a really clever choice made. The Victor Drago character, well, they did a great job in this movie of taking Ivan Drago, the character that killed Apollo Creed, which set the events in motion for the Creed series. They did a great job in humanizing him. A phenomenal job. Dolph Lundgren is a very underrated actor, yo. Dolph Lundgren is mad underrated, and he really shows it here. I wish there were more scenes with him and Rocky. Obviously, the scene at the restaurant is very powerful. There's a deleted scene where they confront each other for like a moment in the dressing room, and it really does feel like Donnie has respect for Victor, but for Ivan, maybe not as much because Ivan did kill Apollo. So for them to take the story and make Ivan somewhat sympathetic was a challenge because this guy actually murdered somebody in a Rocky movie. Not just won the fight, murdered them, right? The dude's a killer. But they do a great job because Drago, the way that Dolph Lundgren plays him, you can tell that this whole thing bothers him. You can tell that he's doing it for the right reason or for the wrong reasons, right? For the wrong reasons. And Victor is kind of the one that has to show him, like, no, like, that's not the right way. And I love the foreshadowing and the build up to what happened in the climax where Ivan Drago throws the towel in as Victor's getting pummeled. That was so powerful because the symbolism, the fact that Rocky did not throw the towel in for Apollo and blamed himself for Apollo dying because he didn't do it, because he let Apollo be, stubborn. Ivan Drago was worried that his own son was going to die. And when that bitch fucking walked out of her seat and he looks and he sees that his son is getting pummeled and he has to throw the towel in, doing what Rocky did not do, saving his son's life because he realized that all he has left, all Victor and Ivan have is each other. And that is so powerful. And then they have the subplot with Rocky and his son, and how he wants to see his grandson. And I love what a phenomenal film this is. I love how the recurring theme of this movie, it'll make you cry, bro. The finale is very emotional, is fathers and sons. How does Donnie deal with Apollo being his father and him having a daughter in this movie who might have a hearing disability? How does Sylvester Stallone's Rocky deal with Robert, his son, and Robert Jr. and their family and how he's kind of, not really kept up with them. Then you have Ivan Drago and Victor. And it's really powerful and masculine how this story really focuses on the power of fathers and sons or parents and children. With three completely different situations, with six or more different characters, what a great film. Tessa Thompson, phenomenal in the movie. I really like how humble Michael B. Jordan plays Donnie in this movie. He's nervous to ask her to marry him. He's uncertain of himself. I love that aspect of him in this film. Like, I love that he is still kind of maneuvering his way through life. And even though he becomes the champion and does extraordinarily well in the boxing ring compared to how he did in the previous movie, he became the world champion here. I like how he wasn't totally sure. And I like how he went through some rigorous training for that second fight. I will say this too, Michael B. Jordan in this movie, and Victor Drago, of course, they both look like absolute monsters. Michael B. Jordan put on what looks to be 30 to 40 pounds of muscle, if not more, for this movie. The dude is absolutely jacked. He is a monster compared to how he looked in Creed 1. It was almost to the point where these guys were like comic book characters. That's how perfect they were, physically. But man, the punches in this film, you could feel the power that Victor was bringing. Like, there was just so much here. And again, the credibility. You had HBO Sports. You had, like, the real people that covered boxing in the film. Another phenomenal movie that took the realism of Rocky, or took the story of Rocky and brought it into the 21st century. And the I love the story, like I said. Love the fights. The movie just, I was so worried it was going to suck. And it wound up way, way exceeding my expectations. And when I started hearing rumors about how Creed 3 is supposed to be like about Clubber Lang coming back, or Clubber Lang's son, I hated that idea. And thankfully, the real Creed 3 is not about that. But this movie, one of the things that's sad is that this is like the end of Sylvester Stallone as Rocky because he's not in Creed 3. Now, I'm hoping that he comes back for a future movie, but the way things are going with him in the studio, there's problems. There's real heat between them. So it's unfortunate, but the story of Rocky is so powerful. The fact that Donnie didn't want to keep him, that he showed up at the hospital and, he was an angry guy, but Rocky was so forgiving. Rocky was so forgiving and so loving of Donnie in this movie, as if Donnie was his own son. And it felt that way. Ivan Drago had his son Victor, Rocky had his son, just for the movie, figuratively, in Donnie. Just phenomenal stuff, man. Michael B. Jordan killed it in this movie. The dude's a monster. And really, everybody did. I even have to put over, like, Wood Harris had more stuff to do, but I have to put over Florian Munteanu, or however you pronounce his name, the guy who plays Victor Drago. He's not like, when he barely spoke in the movie, so he didn't do that much acting, but the guy is a legitimate monster, and his facial expressions, not his dialogue, but his facial expressions, I thought were really good. This is good filmmaking. It's a very well made movie. It is a bit too derivative from Rocky 4 and too similar to it to a degree, but it doesn't have as many montages, A, and B. It actually is so good that it makes Rocky 4 better. Creed 2 is such a good movie that it makes Rocky 4 a better movie. I told y'all in a previous video, in my own head, I decanonized Rocky 4 and 5. It was 1, 2, 3 in Balboa, or just 1, 2, and 3. And then when Creed happened, it made me feel better about 4 and 5. Well, Creed 2 really made me feel better about it. And a sequel is good when it elevates the previous films, and that's what Creed 2 did. The Rocky franchise is still almost perfect. Every movie is either an A plus, an A, or maybe like a B plus. The lowest I'll go is like a C plus or a B minus for Rocky 5, but they have no stinkers. Some say Rocky 5 is a stinker. No, watch it again. There are way worse movies than Rocky 5. Trust me. But it does make some weird choices. However, so far, Creed 1 and Creed 2 have been masterpieces, and I cannot wait for Creed 3 here on World of Geekdom. Subscribe if you are new. Thanks again, take care, and I'll see y'all in the Creed 3 review.